Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Andrew DeStefano, Putnam County Crime Analysis. Welcome to my next CPTED video number 5, which is crime prevention through environmental design. Again, crime prevention through environmental design. Video number 5 now, and hopefully this is the last video that I'm making prior to being able to show my my pictures and videos that I'm going to use as examples of what I'm talking about. Right now, I'm just giving, bland textbook definitions, and I'm trying to blow through it quick. But I have to give the definitions, and then I can show you what I did for 4 months, going out and taking pictures and making examples of everything that I've been saying in the last several videos. Before I get started, though, I do want to give two big shout outs and thank yous, both to the Carmel Police Department. The first one was in a previous video. I spoke about when I submitted a FOIL request to law enforcement regarding the trailway, and I received a document back, 105 pages of crime and criminal activity and police activity related to the Putnam County Trailway. 105 pages. Well, I had submitted that to the Carmel Police Department, and the person who's in charge of the FOIL there, who carries out the FOIL requests. I don't like to say names on social media, whether it's good or bad. I don't like to say the names, but big shout out to her. She did a wonderful job. She first of all, I got the documents in like a few days, but it wasn't just a matter of getting them and sending them to me. She clearly went through each and every document, and then redacted any personal information, any information that really I'm not supposed to have, any information that's really not supposed to be released was redacted, even if it was just a little bit. So you could tell she did her job, and I always like when people take their job seriously and they do their due diligence. So great job by the Carmel Police Department with the FOIL request. And also, the second shout out also goes to the Carmel Police Department, because I didn't want to say anything, because when I had spoken to two officers from the Carmel Police Department, when I spoke to them, they kind of opened up to me because of who I am, my background, my name. They knew who I was, and as a result of that, they had told me what they were doing. I didn't want to say anything on my videos because I felt that information wasn't secret, but it was confidential. It was, I believe they only told me because of my background and who I am. However, when my first video came out for this, this project, crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED, on the bike trail on the Putnam County Trailway, it came out at night. My first video, within hours, I believe it was the Carmel Police Department posted a Facebook video saying that they have their drone over the trailway, and don't be alarmed. I don't know why they would say that. Maybe they didn't want anyone thinking they were looking for any bad guys. They want to scare people. So that point I can understand. But one day I was out doing something else, but I was near the trailway, and I saw two members of the Carmel Police Department, and they were operating the drone, and they were looking for encampments, and that's what they told me, and they showed me their drone. The drone was like $16,000, worth every penny. Whatever they paid, if it was more than that, they got their money's worth. Those drones are really worth their money and their time and their resources. But they showed me one picture of they could pick out a squirrel in a tree with their drone. It's really it's incredible what they can do today. So I do have my own drone. It's not $16,000, but so shout out to them also, because I know that Carmel PD, maybe others, I don't know, but I did run into them that day, and they were doing drone activity over the trailway. Even though they were off site, that's what they told me they were doing. Like I said, I didn't want to say anything, because I felt that when they spoke to me only because of who I am and my background and stuff. So I wanted to maintain some discretion there. But they made a Facebook, Carmel PD made a Facebook posting or reel showing their drone, going, it was just a generic photo. It didn't show like over the trailway or anything like that, I don't think. But I wanted to give a shout out to them. So as I said, this is video number 5. These are my, this is one of my 3 legal pads. Now, I'm getting into right now the additional complementary CPTED strategies. As I said, there's 14 of them. I'm going to be blowing through these definitions very quick. These are textbook definitions and they're not really attached to any pictures, but I do want to show a video before I leave because it is pretty disturbing. I'm going to start giving, after this video, hopefully I'll start giving photo and video examples starting in my next video. All right. Now, some of the complementary strategies don't apply, or some have more application than others. Without further ado, I'll bring my project in, and this is page 15. So we start on the top. You don't see it. It goes from the bottom of the previous page, but it's traffic calming. All right. And that's exactly what it sounds like. You got to calm the traffic. And there's a million things you can do to calm the traffic. I've done these studies before in Putnam. It's physical measures that you can take that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use. It alters driver behavior and improve conditions for non-motorized street users like bicycles, right? It reduces the need for police enforcement. So if you can calm the traffic, then, and you can make things safe just through physical means, then it reduces the need for police enforcement, for police resources. And that saves you not only money, it saves you time, and now you can use those resources in other ways and methods, right? So like I said, it reduces the need for police enforcement. Pedestrian traffic signs, that's an example of traffic calming. I'm not going to get into the various types. There's a lot of them, even like a 3-way traffic circle, that's traffic calming. There's speed bumps, speed humps, and there's a difference between bump and hump. Diverters, median barriers, intersectionals, illuminated crosswalks, raised crosswalks, speed table, center islands, etc. There's no need to know them all, but just know that they're out there, and there's all these different things that can be done to calm the traffic. It's all meant to calm traffic. The next one on the list is landscaping. You use plants and vegetation strategically to improve safety and deter crime by increasing visibility, controlling access, and reinforcing boundaries of the property. So essentially, what can you do? Right? Use plants and vegetation strategically to improve safety. In other words, cutting back on the bushes, cutting back on the brush, cutting back on the overgrowth, cutting out all these ambush points, all these points where you can't see around the corner, you can't even see around the curve. When you reduce all this brush, all this vegetation, and there's a lot of overgrowth on that trailway, you're going to make it a lot safer. And not in the criminal sense, but look how it's done. And I've been asking for this, and they're doing it in the last couple of years. NICEC, I hate using NICEC as a good example, but NICEC has been coming in because remember, for years, every time it rained, we were getting blackouts, we were losing power. And why? Because all this overgrowth of brush and trees, etc., was overhanging all the cables and wires. And then at the littlest wind, this brush would come down, the trees would come down, and it knocks out the lines, knocks out the power. So in nice weather all year long, they've been coming out and addressing that and cutting out all the overgrowth, cutting out the overgrowth of the trees and of the brush and of the bushes, etc., so that when it rains, there's nothing to come down and take the wires out. Right. So that's the same type of concept. But although NICEC does it to protect the wires, you do it here to protect people, increase visibility, controlling access. So in other words, when you cut away all the brush, you can control the access in that way, and it reinforces the boundaries of the property. So when you can trim away your brush, you know where your property is located. There's some areas in the in the bike path that when you see all this brush, you don't know which way the trailway is going. So transition zones doesn't really apply. That's more for like if you have buildings, and you use landscaping to promote public area, or reverse, to promote public area, semi-public, then private. And then why do you do that? This way you can make the building more safe. People will know automatically just by the landscaping what's public, what's semi-public, and what's private. Lighting, I covered that a lot. All right. Again, it's the trailway is closed at night, so I don't know what the plan would be for nighttime lights. Light trespass, unwanted artificial light that spills beyond the property is intended to illuminate. Celebrated entryway, a prominent, well-lit, inviting entrance that clearly identifies the main access point to a property and encourages proper use. That's more for like when you have like a campus, almost like a building with many different doors and private entrances. You should be able to look at that building that has all these different doors and look at one area and say, that's the entryway. That's called a celebrated entryway. What that does is that's your focal point. That produces wayfinding. It guides you to your destination. Right? Focal point, a designated area that attracts attention and serves as a point of focus for visitors to the trailway. That's a big one. All right. Focal points draw people's attention. It encourages activity. Things like you could have statues we're talking about the trailway now. You could have statues. You could have art on these different walls. There's art you can make, sculptures. It builds a sense of ownership. But when you build ownership, people feel as if they own it. And the bad guy comes in and says, oh man, I can't mess with this place because it looks like someone cares about it. You enhance natural surveillance when you combine your landscape. It's going to make a lot more sense when I show the pictures. Positive activity generator. This is why we're here, folks. This is the big one, right? There's a million different things you can do. You're limited only by your imagination. Positive activity generator. Positive activity generates positive activity. It attracts positive, legitimate use to a space, often one with limited natural surveillance. Now, without going to the photos yet, all right, there was multiple areas that I found, and I walked miles and miles of that trailway, and I did it multiple times over the months. I spent more time at that trailway than anyone who was interviewed. I spent more time at that trailway doing an assessment than anybody in this county. Okay, there are a lot of areas that I found on that trailway that are just like open, flat grass. What could you do there? You could do, in nice weather. You could do yoga classes. You could do art classes. How long is the Putnam County's jurisdiction, did we say? What'd I say? 12 miles? Sounds like you could do a 5K run, a 10K run. Those groups that are into the running and the bicycling, those guys, and I say this in a positive way, I say this respectfully. These guys are fanatics. It doesn't matter the weather, doesn't matter the time, the day. They come out. It could be Christmas morning. If you schedule a 5K on Christmas morning, they'll come out. These guys love their running. And that trailway is right for a 5K. That would be huge up here because I don't know why, but Putnam never really got into it. VFW has done it and has done well when we did it. But as I said, you can have yoga, just like the libraries have outdoor yoga classes and outdoor different classes. You can have yoga classes, art classes. You could do your running, your bicycling. You do a bike ride. You could do chess tournaments out there, checker tournaments. What I've seen actually in other places related to CPTED is they have on a flat area, they bring out these big boards. They set them up, they connect them. They're very light, and then they have these chess pieces that are about 2 feet high, and they set up their board, and the thing is huge. And you stand there, you're not sitting because each chess piece is 2 feet high. And when you want to move your piece, you pick it up and you move it to the box you want to move it to. When you want to take out the queen or the king. Um, and that I didn't get a picture of it. I wanted to use pictures that I could take, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see anybody doing that. Obviously, that's a novel idea. But something like that would bring so much attention to this trailway. It would take time initially, but it would bring so much attention. You're limited, as I said, only by your imagination. There's so much you can do. So what are we going to say? We're gonna ramp up public activity. Okay, ramp up. We're going to ramp up public activity. Now, on the contrary, negative activity generator. Negative. An area that attracts criminal activity or illicit activity, right? Pedestrian scale. It's not really applicable on a bike path. All right. Wayfinding. It's a system of design elements that guides people through a physical environment to their destination. Anywhere on that bike path, you should be able to find your way out and to find which direction you want to go to. For the most part, it's in good shape. There's a lot of graffiti problems, however, that goes to maintenance, but there are some confusing area that could be dangerous. And I will point that out with pictures. Best to point it out with pictures, show and tell, right? Connectability, partnerships with other agencies. I just go to the next page here. Um, Partnerships with other agencies. Again, limited only by your imagination. How many agencies do we have within Putnam, in Putnam County government? We have the Senior Resource Center. We have all the towns have all their own, sports. I don't want to call them. I don't know what they're called. And it's really a shame because I used to do it all the time with my daughter when she was appropriate age. All the youth activity things, and then all the adult activity events. You could have it on the bike path. You could have it on the trailway. There's so much room to do it. Social management encourages positive, legitimate use of spaces to deter criminal activity. And then site recommendations, design and management strategies intended to deter crime and reduce the fear of crime. I do want to say, I don't want to get into this too much, but I do want to say that of all of them, reduce crime, reduce the fear of crime, and improve quality of life. They're all very important, obviously. Reducing the fear of crime is so important because I remember when Mayor Giuliani was targeting Times Square and he wanted Times Square cleaned up. His axiom was very simple about Times Square. It doesn't matter what your numbers are, essentially. If you don't feel safe, you're not safe. You understand? If you don't feel safe, you're not safe. And when we have people making statements like, I am never going back to that trailway, that's horrible. That is really horrible, and that's why we're here. So this is going to be the end of this video. I'm happy now to say that should be all subsequent videos are going to be more show and tell. I have my pictures. I would walk out there on the trailway and with my legal pad, and I'd be sitting on the bench just taking notes, and all kinds of people would come up to me. Hey, what are you doing? They thought maybe I was an official for some organization. I said, no, I'm just doing this on my own. And very appreciative. Very appreciative. And I gave them my name and everything else. So you should know that. They're very appreciative of what I'm doing because I know that there's going to be some people that not very appreciative. Because I know how politics works in this place. But before I go, I do want to show one quick video. It's 1 minute. Okay. And this thing just shows what exactly I'm talking about. When you have graffiti in an area like that trailway, and it's not cleaned up and it's not dealt with properly, you're going to get not only more graffiti, but you're going to give an impression that the misconduct is out of control on that trailway or in the target area, as they say, the focus area. When you have graffiti that all you do is just patch it up with some gray paint, that doesn't work. People are laughing at you. So when you see this graffiti of tic-tac-toe, and there was a tic-tac-toe graffiti on the side of the tunnel where I believe this woman suffered her brutal assault. They went out there, I guess the county or the town, somebody went out there and just painted it over with gray paint, like a little patch, which is not only useless, it's an eyesore. It makes it look like you don't care. You understand? It makes it look like you don't care. You're given the feeling that you don't care. So what did they do? They went out and they patched over this tic-tac-toe thing in red, and look what they did. And there's more more to it than what I'm going to show right now. I just want to show this. Hold on. Yes, give me 1 second here. Like I said, it's a 1-minute video.
Look at this. This is it's been almost 3 months to the day of this of that assault, October 19th. This is the tunnel that occurred in. Look at this. They patched it over with gray paint, which is useless, obviously, and then look what happened. This is obviously a sign of lack of control of this trailway. You got some serious problems. It's been 3 months since this assault, and from what I understand, right here in this tunnel, and God forbid these things come down and crack you in the head. And today it's like 50 degrees, so they're getting ready to fall. Look at that, one just came down. My God. One of them just came down right now, as I'm saying this.
So you see what I'm saying? First of all, there was ramped up patrols. If there was ramped up patrols, I assume increased patrols. How was that missed? These have these sharp spears hanging down. I mean, I don't know how was that missed, right? And those things are dangerous. You saw I was standing there, and then I just happened to remark that if this thing hits somebody in the head, it's going to splice their head open. I turn my head, I come back, boom. I didn't turn my head. My neck is bent. I turned around like this, and boom, and one of them came down. But the graffiti itself, there was the red tic-tac-toe area, and it was patched over with gray paint. Which, I mean, come on, what are you gonna do? Just keep going back there and just keep patching it over? How about some imaginative responses here? And I'm gonna get into that when I show my pictures. Other towns have done better. All right. Other towns, other places have done better than we have. Sorry to say. All right. And then what they do, they went and where you patched it over, they did like a red outline. I mean, if that's not a challenge, if that's not an embarrassment, I don't know what is. I really don't know what's an embarrassment. If you're not embarrassed by that, that's embarrassing. Getting a little long-winded in this video, but I remember when I don't want to say how I did it, because if the county's interested, I'll tell them how I did it, privately, offline. But if you go northbound on the Henry Hudson Parkway at 158th Street, and you look over to the right, that huge Riverside Drive, it looks like a bridge, but it's like an overpass kind of thing. And it was all tagged up. It was all tagged up. And what I did was, I was the beat officer down there, and I said, you know what? And I was the beat officer 6 years. And I said, enough is enough. I had it cleaned up, and I had some things done. And not only was it cleaned up, but we wound up, when they got re-tagged, we wound up making arrests on the people that tagged it. I don't want to say how I did it and with what I did it with. All right. But if anybody wants to know, I'll tell them offline. If anybody's still watching, or if they're just going to complain about what is this guy doing with his videos, which is usually what happens in this county. So in any event, this is Andrew DeStefano, Putnam County Crime Analysis. Thank you. God bless. Be safe. Be well.